Tuesday morning, April 22nd, 2026. You wake up, pull back the curtains, and something is different. The cloud that has been sitting over your town for the past week is thinner. The light is stronger. And your weather app, for the first time in what feels like months, is showing a run of sunshine icons that stretches across the next 10 days without a single gray cloud in sight. This is not a glitch. This is not a brief interlude before the next Atlantic system rolls in from the southwest. This is, according to the Met Office, the beginning of a sustained high-pressure pattern that could bring the UK some of its finest spring weather of the year, with temperatures building to 17, 18, 19 degrees across the south and west this week, and forecasting models pointing toward 20, 21, even 22 degrees for up to 24 counties across England at the end of April and the very beginning of May. After the cold April nights, the frosts, and the weeks of unsettled westerly flow that defined the first half of this month, Britain's weather is doing a U-turn. And the driver of that change is one of the most reliable warm weather architects in the UK's meteorological calendar, a strong high-pressure system sitting to the north and northwest of the country, blocking Atlantic weather systems, turning winds from the northwest to the west and southwest, and pumping progressively warmer air up from continental Europe and the subtropical Atlantic. The sun is coming. Here's exactly what to expect, when to expect it, and how to make the most of it. Let us start with the official source, because the Met Office week-ahead forecast published on Monday, April 20th, is unusually direct about the character of the coming spell. Their headline is unambiguous, largely dry and increasingly warm. Their meteorologist, Alex Burkle, said in the accompanying video briefing that high pressure is going to be firmly in control, and that it is going to be largely dry as a direct result. He described temperatures already moving into the mid-teens across much of the country this week, with the south and west seeing the highest readings. His specific quote for the days immediately ahead: "There is plenty of dry, sunny, and rather warm weather to come for many of us this week. We have high pressure to the north of us, and it is going to be firmly in control, and that is why it is going to be largely dry. Temperatures are rising into the mid-teens, a little bit fresher where you are exposed to the breeze from the North Sea, but further west the mid-teens are most likely, and it will feel warm in the sunshine." That last sentence is the key one. Further west, the mid-teens are most likely. Britain's temperature geography during high-pressure patterns is always divided between the western and southern regions, which benefit most from onshore flow from the Atlantic or continental Europe, depending on the wind direction, and the eastern coastal regions, which can remain significantly cooler when winds have a northerly or northeasterly component blowing off the cold North Sea. Burkle was explicit about this north-south and east-west divide in his briefing, noting that North Sea exposure will keep eastern areas notably cooler, and that gusts of around 50 miles per hour or stronger are possible along southern and southwestern coasts during midweek as a cyclonic storm grazes the far southwest. That is the one caveat in what is otherwise a very positive forecast: a brief disruption midweek from a low-pressure system that brushes the southwest, bringing cloudier skies and outbreaks of rain to areas from Cornwall through Devon and perhaps into parts of South Wales. But Burkle was also clear that by Wednesday night, the high pressure to the north reasserts firm control, and the warming trend continues. The Met Office's extended forecast for April 22nd to May 1st, their official 10-day outlook, is worth reading carefully because it defines what the next 2 weeks actually look like. Quote, "High pressure is likely to remain centered to the north or northwest of the UK for much of this period amid slowly evolving weather patterns. This means, overall, a fair amount of dry weather is expected, though there will likely be some exceptions. They do flag a brief cold spell as a risk, a short-lived intrusion of cooler air that could bring wintry showers to some areas, particularly in the north and east, along with more widespread overnight frost. But they are equally clear that any such cold episode is likely to be brief before milder conditions reestablish themselves." Brief, mild conditions reestablishing. This is not the forecast language of a Met Office that is worried about prolonged unsettled weather. This is the forecast language of a pattern that is fundamentally benign and persistently dry for the next fortnight, with one brief wobble and then warmth reasserting itself as April closes and May opens. The headline number is 20 degrees Celsius, and understanding where that figure comes from, which model is generating it, and how confident the forecast community is in it, is important for setting realistic expectations. The British brief analysis published on April 18th, based on the ECMWF European Center for Medium Range. Weather Forecasts model identified a specific 3-day period at the very end of April, April 29th through May 1st, as the most likely window for the warmest readings. The ECMWF data showed afternoon temperatures reaching 21 to 22 degrees Celsius in and around London on April 29th, with South Yorkshire and the Midlands seeing highs of approximately 20 degrees around 6 in the evening of the same day. On April 30th, the warmth was forecast to persist in the southeast, with London and surrounding areas again potentially reaching 21 degrees. Across the 3-day period at the end of April, the ECMWF model suggests that up to 24 different counties across England could see temperatures of 20 degrees Celsius or higher. Not Scotland, not Wales for the most part. England specifically, with the highest values concentrated in a band from the Thames Valley and London northward through the East Midlands, South Yorkshire, and potentially into parts of Lincolnshire and Norfolk on the warmest days. The southeast, as usual during high-pressure warmth, benefits from the combination of strong, late April sunshine and air that has traveled across the warm continental landmass of France and the Low Countries before reaching British shores. Those southeasterly and southerly winds at the surface, under the anticyclone's clockwise circulation, are the delivery mechanism for the warm continental air. And with April 29th being just 9 days away from today, this is not a vague long-range projection. This is a medium-range forecast with meaningful confidence behind it, driven by a pattern that the models have been consistently showing for the past several days. GB News' weather analysis, published this Tuesday, captured the broader picture from both the Met Office and independent forecasters. Met Office meteorologist Alex Burkle specifically pointed to temperatures more likely to get into the high teens or perhaps the low 20 Cs for some parts towards the south during the later part of the week and into next week. Jim Dale, meteorologist for British Weather Services and co-author of the book Surviving Extreme Weather, added a practical note that is worth taking seriously. The sun at this time of year is starting to get stronger, so there will be high levels of UV, meaning if temperatures are not that high, there is still a risk of sunburn. This is correct and underappreciated. The UV index in late April in the United Kingdom is already substantially higher than most people expect. The sun is 30 to 40 degrees above the horizon at midday in southern England on April 22nd, compared to less than 20 degrees in December. Sunshine in April can cause sunburn within 30 to 40 minutes of unprotected exposure, even when temperatures feel only pleasantly warm. The SPF reminder in a weather forecast is not a gimmick. It is accurate public health information for this time of year. Britain's finest spring and summer weather is almost always produced by one thing: a high-pressure system sitting in the right place relative to the UK. Not just any high pressure, a blocking anticyclone positioned to the north or northwest of the British Isles that deflects Atlantic weather systems away from the country and allows warm air to flow in from the south or southwest. This is exactly the pattern the Met Office has described for the coming fortnight, and it is worth understanding why that specific position is so effective at producing prolonged dry spells across England. Atmospheric pressure is measured in millibars, and the United Kingdom, in a typical westerly weather regime, sits downstream of the Icelandic low, the semi-permanent area of low pressure that steers Atlantic depressions across the British Isles from west to east in a conveyor belt of frontal systems. When a high-pressure system builds to the north or northwest, over or near the Azores, or extending northeastward toward Scandinavia, it acts as a roadblock. Atlantic fronts that would normally sweep across Ireland, Wales, and England are deflected northward into the Norwegian Sea or the Arctic and track away from the country. The high's clockwise circulation in the right position draws warm air northward from Iberia, France, or the Bay of Biscay on its eastern and southeastern flank, exactly the trajectory that delivers the warmest spring temperatures to southern and western England. This specific pattern, high pressure to the northwest, blocking Atlantic flow, warm southerly or southwesterly winds across England, is what forecasters call a continental feed pattern in spring. It is the same pattern that produced the UK's warmest April on record in 2019, and the extended warm spring spells that Britons associate with bank holiday barbecues and cricket on the green. It is also, as the Met Office's 3-month outlook and the ECMWF extended range model suggest, a pattern that appears likely to be the dominant feature through at least the first third of May. The Met Office's AMJ seasonal outlook, covering April, May, and June, indicated that above average temperatures and below average rainfall are among the more likely outcomes for the coming 3-month period. A sustained anticyclonic spring is not guaranteed, but the probability distribution is tilted in that direction, and the week-ahead forecast is consistent with the longer-range signal. There is one complicating factor that the GB News analysis flagged and that the Met Office also acknowledged: the brief, cold spell risk. Around April 24th to 26th, midweek next week, there's a possibility of a temporary retrogression in the pattern, with a trough of low pressure introducing a cooler air mass from the north or northeast and bringing wintry showers to higher ground in Scotland and northern England, with the possibility of overnight frost further south. This is not unusual in late April. The concept of the blackthorn winter, a traditional British term for a brief cold spell that sometimes arrives in late April when blackthorn is in blossom, reflects centuries of observation that April's warmth can be interrupted by cold, northerly incursions, even in an overall anticyclonic spring. The key word in the Met Office's language about this risk is brief. The modeling suggests any cold intrusion would last 2 to 3 days before the high reasserts itself, and the warming resume is ahead of the end of April peak. Let us go region by region, because the 20-degree plus temperatures at the end of April are not uniformly distributed across the UK, and understanding the regional geography of this pattern will help you plan the coming fortnight accurately. London and the southeast, the warmest region for almost every high-pressure pattern in the United Kingdom. The ECMWF model data cited in the British Brief Analysis shows London and the home counties leading the warm spell, with 21 to 22 degrees possible on the 29th and 30th of April. The combination of urban heat island effect, the shelter from the north, sea provided by the geography of East Anglia, and the direct exposure to continental air on southeasterly winds makes this region consistently the hottest in anticyclonic patterns. If you are in London, Surrey, Kent, East Sussex, West Sussex, Essex, Hertfordshire, or Bedfordshire, this is your best shot at a genuinely warm late April weekend. Outdoor dining, parks, beer gardens, all viable by the end of the month. The south and southwest. Devon, Cornwall, Dorset, Somerset, Hampshire, Wiltshire. This region will benefit strongly from the anticyclone, with temperatures in the high teens through the week ahead and the possibility of reaching 20 degrees by the weekend of the 26th and 27th before the main warmth peaks at the end of the month. The caveat here is the midweek cyclonic storm that the Met Office flagged. It will approach the far southwest most closely, potentially bringing a day or two of cloud and rain to Cornwall and Devon around the 23rd and 24th. After that, the high reasserts and the southwest returns to sunshine. Western and inland parts of the southwest, Dartmoor, Exmoor, the Somerset levels, will see excellent conditions once the brief disturbance clears. Wales and the Midlands. Wales will be drier than its western exposure typically allows, though North Wales may see some cloud and cooler temperatures, where the North Sea influence wraps around the north of England. South Wales, Powys, and the border counties will be pleasant and warm. The Midlands, Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire, Leicestershire, Northamptonshire, Warwickshire, Worcestershire, are squarely in the warmth zone identified by the ECMWF model for the end of April peak, with 20 degrees possible in inland locations away from North Sea exposure. Burkle specifically cited South Yorkshire and the Midlands as reaching approximately 20 degrees around 6 p.m. on April 29th in the ECMWF data. Northern England and Scotland. The pattern is less uniformly warm here, and the north-south divide that Burkle described is real and important. North Sea exposure keeps temperatures in coastal Yorkshire, Lincolnshire, Northumberland, and northeastern Scotland significantly cooler, sometimes 10 degrees cooler than the west on the same day in this kind of pattern. Inland northern areas, the Peak District, the Yorkshire Dales, the Lake District, will see pleasant conditions with temperatures in the mid-teens, but the 20-degree plus readings are likely to remain south of the Midlands. Scotland broadly will see mixed conditions. The west and northwest, sheltered from the North Sea, will benefit most from the anticyclone, while the east coast will be notably cooler and at times cloudy. Let us zoom out from the 2-week forecast for a moment, because the high-pressure pattern now building over the UK does not exist in isolation. It is the latest episode in what is shaping up to be an unusually active and volatile spring in the northern hemisphere's mid-latitude weather systems. The same atmospheric pattern that brought record 90-degree temperatures to Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia last week before blue norther dropped those cities TO near freezing in 48 hours. The same pattern that produced record blizzards in Providence, Rhode Island in February and the warmest March on record across western North America in the same season. The British weather system is connected to that broader atmospheric picture through the same mechanism, the jet stream and its position relative to the UK. For the past several weeks, the jet stream has been running in a configuration that has steered Atlantic systems across the UK on a more northern track, allowing high pressure to build to the south and west. The Met Office's seasonal outlook, above average temperatures and below average rainfall as the more likely outcome for spring 2026, reflects the same modeling signal that the Met Office's climate scientists use to assess the probability of different seasonal outcomes. It is not a guarantee, but it is consistent with the pattern that is currently establishing itself, and that the ECMWF model is projecting to persist through at least early May. Jim Dale's UV warning deserves its own paragraph because it is the piece of practical information that the most people will ignore. In southern England on April 29th, the UV index at midday will be in the range of 5 or 6, classified as moderate to high by the World Health Organization. At that level, unprotected skin can begin to burn within 20 to 30 minutes in someone with a fair complexion, and within 40 to 50 minutes for those with more naturally protective pigmentation. The British public's has a well-documented tendency to emerge from winter without having thought about sun protection and to spend the first warm spring weekend entirely unprotected. The result, every year, is a significant number of entirely preventable sunburns. SPF 30 or higher, applied 20 minutes before going outside, reapplied after swimming or heavy sweating. Sunglasses. A hat for extended outdoor time. These are not heavy precautions for a 20-degree April day in Britain. They are appropriate precautions for a UV index of 5. Here is the 2-week summary in plain language. This week, from today, April 22nd, through the weekend of April 26th and 27th. High pressure in control, largely dry and sunny. Temperatures building from the mid-teens to the high teens across southern and western England, cooler in the east and northeast. A brief midweek disturbance brings cloud and rain to the far southwest on the 23rd and 24th, then clears. Next week, from April's 28th onwards, the warmth peaks. 20 degrees or above for up to 24 counties in England. London in the southeast, potentially seeing 21 to 22 degrees on April 29th and 30th. A brief cold spell risk around the 24th to 26th. Likely wintry showers in Scotland and northern England with overnight frost further south, lasting only 2 to 3 days before the warmth reasserts. And beyond that, into early May. The Met Office seasonal signal pointing toward a continuation of the broadly anticyclonic, drier, and warmer than average pattern. Britain is finally getting its spring. After a cold and unsettled first half of April, after the frosts and the Atlantic westerlies and the gray skies, the high pressure that has been promised for weeks is arriving, and it is arriving in a form that looks, on the current evidence, like it intends to stay. Open the windows, book the table outside, check the UV forecast before you go out. And if you are planning a bank holiday weekend at the end of the month, the late May bank holiday is still 5 weeks away, but the end of April warmth may deliver something worth celebrating before it arrives. The 20-degree temperatures are coming, the dry spell is confirmed, and for the next fortnight at least, the British weather gods appear to be in an unusually cooperative mood.